Joining us from the White House is South Shore Press columnist Neil McCabe. Neil, how are you?
Fantastic, Stefan. Great to be with you, man.
So, Neil, the big topic, Capitol Hill needing an ID to vote. What is the latest? What is shaking in Washington?
The vast majority of Americans support voter ID. That's the reason why the Democrats invented the mail-in ballots and the drop boxes, because there's no voter ID with drop boxes and mail-in ballots. And mail-in ballots are different from an absentee ballot. Absentee ballot is like, soldiers serving overseas, someone is sick, someone's traveling, so that there's conditions where, hey, you have to sign a statement saying, hey, there's certain circumstances, so I can't cast this ballot in person. But what the Democrats did is they created the drop boxes and mail-in ballots because voter ID is so popular. It's popular with Democrats. And then there are other election integrity measures, such as getting rid of these sort of mail-in ballots and other things, so that you could sort of have clean elections again. And that's called the Save America Act. The Senate will not pass the House bill. And they've basically told the president, we don't have the votes. And the president has said, well, if you don't pass the Save America Act, I'm not going to sign the housing bill that everyone loves. And all the housing lobbyists and all the industry people, all the real estate agents, everybody wants this housing legislation through. But we saw it in Trump 45. What happens is, the Republican leadership on Capitol Hill basically tells President Trump, you give us what our friends want, and maybe one day we'll give you what you want. And Trump is saying, no, I'm not going to sign the housing bill. Unfortunately for President Trump, instead of having a constitutional crisis, this thing will just become law without his signature, because the Constitution says that if the House and Senate are out of session or in recess and the president doesn't sign it like 10 days, if on that 10th day Congress isn't in session, then it's called a pocket veto, and it just goes away, and you can't override a pocket veto. But because the House and Senate are in these sort of fake non-recess recesses, it's called a pro forma session, that basically it becomes law whether the president wants to, sign it or not. And so this is where we're at right now.
Yeah. So what eventually is going to happen, do you think, when it comes to having people use an ID to vote? I mean, it seems like such a no-brainer. Republicans have the Senate, Republicans have the House. We have the White House clearly, and the president wants a simple bill. You need an ID to vote. What's going to happen?
So House conservatives have about 25, 30 of them have said, we will no longer vote for anything unless the Senate passes the Save America Act. And some of them have gone so far as to say, we won't even vote to open the House floor for business. And so they're in a fake recess now, a pro forma session that will expire Monday the 13th. But if they wanted to come back, right, these House conservatives are saying, we're not going to open the House. So basically, this pro forma session will just continue forever. And remember, there's a lot of things the Senate wants passed too, and so they need the House to help them out. So these House conservatives are saying, we will not play ball anymore. Now, on the Senate side, you have Republicans like Mike Lee and Ted Cruz and Eric Schmidt and Josh Hawley, even John Barrasso, who is the majority whip, fourth zone. He's kind of Trump curious or MAGA curious. He's not full on MAGA, right? But, he's sympathetic. So there are senators who want this thing to go through. But John Thune, the majority leader, he is dead set against it. And basically the idea is, and it's very difficult for people who are doing very well in the system to get them to vote to change the system. And so as bad as elections in America are, these guys are in office and they're thinking, hey, why would I change the rules that got me in office? These rules might get me out of office. And so there we are. This is the big problem.
Well, last question for you, Neil. It just seems, again, like such a no-brainer. What is the Republican, the GOP opposition in the Senate to saying you need an ID to vote? Help me better understand what the big deal is on the Senate side.
So President Barack Obama was able to come into office in 2008 and inaugurated in 2009 because after 40 years of Republican dominance on the national stage, the Republican Party and its consultants and its staffers, they started listening to the donors more than the voters. So like the Tea Party wasn't a revolt against Obama. The Tea Party was a revolt against the Republican leadership. And those guys who listen to the signal coming from the donor tower, they're still in leadership positions. And that's John Thune. His donors don't want things to change. And his job is to deliver for those donors, not for the voters and not for Trump.
Gotcha. All right. Well, keep us posted. We greatly appreciate the update. I know you're busy working at the White House, and we appreciate the update for the South Shore Press. Good to see you, buddy.
To be with you, man.
All right. Let me just hold tight.